I was just minding my own business at the local supermarket, right? Got my earphones in, blasting some tunes, doing my shopping dance down the aisles. You know the vibe? Now, let me tell you about this dude, Tommy. He's this cool, autistic kid, always rocking this dope jacket covered in patches. You can't miss him. Tommy's got this thing with loud noises. It's like kryptonite to him, man. So he's walking around doing his own thing, hands covering his ears, trying to avoid the chaos of the supermarket. No big deal, right? Well, enter Karen. Now, Karen, she's got this blonde bob that screams, "I want to speak to the manager," and she's pushing her cart like she owns the place. She sees Tommy doing his ear, covering routine, and flips her lid. "Hey, you! What's your problem?" Karen yells, pointing her perfectly manicured finger at Tommy. Tommy, being the chill dude he is, doesn't even notice her. He's in his own world vibing to some tunes that probably only he can hear. But Karen ain't having it. She storms over to him, starts waving her hands in his face like she's swatting flies. I could see this from the cereal aisle, and I'm thinking, oh man, this can't end well. Karen's shouting something about respect and manners. I pull out my earphones thinking maybe I can defuse this situation. But before I can say a word, Karen straight up sucker punches Tommy in the face. I'm talking full on, right? Hook to the jaw kind of punch. Tommy staggers back looking stunned. I'm standing there like, did this really just happen? And before I can process it, this big dude who's been watching the whole thing comes charging in yelling, "You can't be hitting people." Turns out he's an off-duty cop, and he whips out these cuffs like he's been waiting for a moment like this his whole life. Karen's face goes from enraged to, oh crap, real quick. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault," he says, and I swear the whole supermarket erupts in cheers. It's like we're at a ball game and the home team just scored the winning goal. I'm low-key feeling like I'm in an episode of a reality show. The cop's radio is crackling with chatter about an assault in the supermarket, and I'm just standing there with my cart of groceries like, well, this wasn't on my shopping list today. Karen, still acting all entitled, tries to pull the "do you know who I am" card. The cop ain't having it. He's all, "I don't care if you're the Queen of England. You don't get to go around punching people." By this point, a crowd is gathered, and someone's recording the whole thing on their phone. It's like the entire store has turned into a live episode of World's Wildest Supermarket Fights. The cop radios for backup, and another officer shows up. They cuff Corinne, and as they're leading her out, she's still yelling about her rights and how she's going to sue everyone in the store. Meanwhile, Tommy's sitting on a stack of cereal boxes looking a bit dazed. I go over to check on him, and he's like, "Man, that lady hits harder than my little brother." I'm trying not to laugh, because seriously, what else can you do in a situation like this? The cop takes our statements, and I find myself recounting the story like I'm a witness to some absurd comedy sketch. The store manager comes over, apologizing left and right, offering to comp our groceries. Tommy's all cool about it, though. He's like, "I just wanted some Pop-Tarts, man." Eventually, the whole thing settles down. Karen gets hauled off in a police car. The crowd disperses, and Tommy and I are left standing there with our grocery carts, still half expecting Ashton Kutcher to pop out and tell us we've been punked. And that, my friends, is how I spent an otherwise mundane Wednesday afternoon witnessing a Karen getting cuffed for punching an autistic dude in a supermarket. Life's crazy, ain't it? I have no idea where to begin, but here it goes. 21 female. I'm getting married in a few weeks. Well, a while back, I asked my sister-in-law, Sadie, F25, to be my bridesmaid. My fiancée warned me that she could be intense and I was under no obligation to include her in the wedding party, but she had been nice enough and I wanted to have a certain number of bridesmaids. I am now regretting my decision. Sadie has a boyfriend, Kyle, 19 male. Kyle has partial custody of his ex's infant daughter. Not sure why, considering he's not related to her, but I never asked. Recently, Sadie had been on my case about picking a flower girl. I really wanted to be my friend's daughter since I have a fantastic relationship with her and was actually in the room for her birth. I even refer to her as my niece. Sadie, however, didn't take this well. When I told her, she blew up and started ranting about how she will ruin the pictures. My niece is neurodivergent and tends to get overstimulated when standing for long periods, so photos may be a challenge for her. I tried to explain to Sadie that my niece was practically family and me and her mother have been making a plan to ensure that the photos won't be overwhelming for her. Sadie then took the opportunity to suggest Kyle's daughter. I explained to her that I was in the delivery room when my niece was born and I wanted her to be a part of my big day since my fiancé proposed it. I thought that was that until about 2 weeks ago. I got a special dress for my niece that looks like a cross between my dress and my bridesmaid dresses. I was showing it to my family when Sadie gives me a gift bag. Inside was an identical dress but for a baby. Sadie then confessed to snooping around my laptop to find the dress I chose for my flower girl and took the opportunity to order one for her boyfriend's daughter. She then said both girls could be a pet on my special day. When I said no, she started screaming at me because it was bad enough that her boyfriend wasn't a groomsman and that I should want him to be a part of the family, especially since my wedding was for the whole family, not just me. She called me selfish bridezilla and stormed out. I was able to calm her down by suggesting Kyle's daughter have a special dance with me at the reception. This seemed to diffuse the situation, and my fiancé apologized for not clearly communicating just how crazy she can get. Everyone is telling me it isn't my fault, but I have to know. Am I the bad apple? Update. Sadie was disinvited from the wedding by my fiancé due to how she treated me, and when her mom, fiancé's stepmom, got upset, he disinvited her too. I also got a message from Kyle's ex threatening to sue me if I let her baby be the flower girl. Sadie told her that she would be the flower girl. I'm looking into higher security and maybe changing the venue without telling her so she won't cause trouble. My 27 female, cousin 26 female, and her fiancé, 26 male, are supposed to get married around spring. They have been engaged for 2 years. Cousin has been living with us since she was 3, after her parents passed away, and I love her dearly as my younger sister and I support her in many of her decisions, except for this marriage. I feel like my cousin is rushing into things and ignoring the fact that they're not financially stable. Neither of them has a job, and while she is in a PhD program and they're living off some of her research funds, it is not enough to make a living. They are currently residing in an apartment that his parents are paying for. To be fair, I never approved of their relationship, even when they were dating, and I haven't softened up on them yet. I've been vocal with her about wanting them to break up their relationship. Now engagement, I find him obnoxious and rude, and he has made some unnecessary comments that still boil me. For instance, whenever we invite them for dinner, he makes snarky remarks about my wife's traditional dishes. And no, we've never forced them to eat any of them. Those were more for my wife than for them. But he compliments everything I make, even something as simple as coffee, and he keeps telling me that I'll make a good man happy one day. It's infuriating that my cousin just ignores this. His disrespect for my marriage is the reason for this whole situation. With the wedding on the way, he introduced me to the other funder, his relative. We hit it off right away. We're close in age and share similar interests, so we bonded well. But I started to notice that my brother-in-law was behaving peculiarly, like he would try to give us space to be alone with each other or give us hints that we are a natural couple. I had to tell the other person that I have a wife, and what he told me in return really shocked me to the core. Brother-in-law has been going around telling his family that I'm getting a divorce because my wife cheated. The sheer audacity of this man baffled me. I left and, without saying a word to anyone, withdrew my fund. After cooling down, I informed the couple, my wife and my parents, of what I had done and why. My cousin called me crying and begging for the funds, but I told her no. If she can't afford a wedding, then don't have one. My brother-in-law has resorted to calling me names and is getting his parents involved in it as well. My parents are okay with it, as it is my money. But my wife, although she is angry with what brother-in-law did, doesn't support my action. Whether I withdrew the fund or not, they will get married and stay family with us. So this would only cause a rift with my sister. While I understand her point, I don't see why I should support the marriage of someone who doesn't respect mine. So, am I the idiot for withdrawing funds because my brother-in-law slandered my marriage? And now, for some comments, you're not the idiot. He sounds awful. I think you've every right to refuse any funds given how repeatedly disrespectful he has been. It could definitely cause a rift with your cousin, but I personally think rather than enabling the situation, rifts can be resolved over time if they occur. But enabling bad behavior is tough to crack, and your brother-in-law needs to face consequences for his actions. What shameful, homophobic behavior by your brother-in-law. Of course, you don't pay for anything involving this guy with the possible exception of a one-way ticket out of town. I tell you, little sister, I'm sorry, but He has put down my wife and tried to ruin her reputation by lying about her character to his family. He has disrespected my wife, my marriage, and me in ways that are unforgivable. He is homophobic in word and deed. I cannot offer financial support for these reasons, and I would hope you would understand as I assume you respect me, my wife, and our relationship. Not. 1. Red sent. You're not the idiot. And why were you funding it anyway? And he's so darn disrespectful of your wife, I wouldn't allow him into my house, and I wouldn't allow him into my house, and I wouldn't go to their wedding. Use the money to go on a nice holiday instead. This man is abusive and really, really dumb. He let his colors show too early, should have waited till you'd paid before he so grossly insulted you. They will stay in the family. So what? I'd go low contact. You're not the idiot with anyone who supports him. Bit worried about your wife defending him. In the name of good customer service, if an item is marked incorrectly on the shelf or flyer or an old sales tag is left up, an out-of-date price, etc., we will honor it. Within reason, no one is walking out with a $1,200 grill for $120, as an example, but we do not give the item away free. The number of times I've had people make that joke or even tell me that it's free, now in a completely serious voice, is insane. I don't know how it works in the US, but here, the scanning code of practice is voluntary. Yet, I've had an old lady tell me at a bus stop on my day off that a package of chicken she got from a grocery store was free because they have to give it to her if the barcode doesn't scan or the wrong price comes up. Most notable story is when a Karen came up with a flashlight that was on sale. It scanned at the wrong price, and she insisted it was on sale. She tried to tell me it was free as required by law, and me being a very new cashier stared blankly at her before stuttering over my words. She took it as me arguing with her and asked me to call a manager, which I did. I guess she could tell I was upset because she tried to comfort me by saying it wasn't my fault, and I just sort of laughed and avoided eye contact awkwardly. Supervisor comes up, tells her we don't adhere to the SCEOP system, but that if the tag says it's on sale, we'll honor that price. He checks the shelf. She grabbed the wrong effing product. Cue her apologizing and being all embarrassed while I silently seethed in disbelief. Who is stupid enough to quote something as being the law without verifying if it was true? This was also just after the pandemic mandates ended, and I got this job in later 2020 when it had just reached us, so I was very new. Probably only working the register on my own, a couple months. Two other notable stories for later is the time a chick from another city called my work to try to get me fired over a laughing emoji I left on a dumb comment she made. Removed where I worked from my Facebook profile after that. And some overweight jerk cursing me out under his breath for not coming around the plexiglass barrier between us to help him lift a 0.5 pounds piece of project panel plywood onto the counter and then calling our store to complain once he got in his car. And our store is considered tame by most standards when it comes to entitled customers. My daughters both had a very unpopular teacher in different years, first grade for the older, third grade for the younger, and they both hated her. She's a screaming blue liberal who routinely stopped all classwork to rant and scream about how horrible Trump is or air grievances about whatever liberal pet peeves of the moment happened to be, or to rain praises down upon the likes of Slick Willie, Bathhouse Barry, and Pedo Joe. My older daughter also had a truly evil third grade teacher who mentally, emotionally, verbally, and, in a certain light, physically abused her. It started with the teacher refusing to let my daughter, not a favored child, i.e. we don't attend the church she was in the hierarchy of, use the latrine no matter how urgent, while other favored kids could go whenever they wanted. When I filed formal grievances, this witch screamed at my daughter in class, telling her that she'd gotten the teacher, into trouble. She proceeded to amp things up. She confiscated a toy my daughter was showing her friends at breakfast, not in class, and refused to return it even to me. It took several months, direct intervention by the superintendent, and even then, she defied orders by hiding it in the classroom after she was let go. At one point, she even had it in the treasure box where it could have been chosen by another kid to take home. She began giving my daughter zeros on everything she did, no matter how much was done or how good a grade she should have had. She took to just exiling my daughter to the recovery room, and school suspension and lower grades. Every day. Without giving her any way to do the classwork or allowing her to get the information so she could make it up, and then gave her zeros for missing class without an excuse and not doing her work. She told my daughter that she had permission from me to paddle her for misbehaving. Not only did she not have such permission, it's against all school policies to use corporal punishment. She routinely made my daughter throw her lunch away within a couple of minutes of starting, especially if it was a lunch I packed for her. She had assigned a class project to write Mother's Day poems for their moms. My daughter couldn't do it. She's suffering severe mental and emotional trauma because her mother walked out on us on Mother's Day of 2015 and was brutally murdered exactly 4 years later by a dangerous schizophrenic. I had told this teacher about this situation. My daughter told her as well, yet she had the nerve, with my daughter in tears begging her for any other assignments or even a zero. Anything but that assignment, because she doesn't have a mother anymore. That witch told my daughter to stop lying. You do too have a mother. I filed many grievances against that teacher. The vice principal covered her butt like titanium skivvies. I had to fight for months with the superintendent's office to get anything done. Ultimately, I had to threaten a massive lawsuit if that teacher wasn't fired. They let her resign instead of firing her for cause. CPS was informed about her. And since she's friends with several of them via their church, the report was sat on until she'd managed to escape by leaving state, at which point CPS said there's nothing we can do about it now. Why didn't I go to the school personally? Because I was warned by a favorite teacher of my daughter that, should I show up, the vice principal was going to provoke an incident that would land me in jail and my kids in the custody of CPS.